Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
CuriosityStream is the streaming service for people who want to know more. And now check out Curiosity's new series, The Real Wild West. Rolling Stone magazine says it's the history of the West they usually don't teach you.
The mythology of the West left out a lot of the people.
People said they'd never seen a black cowboy.
This is the history book, but did you know about these other facts?
Watch The Real Wild West now on CuriosityStream. With monthly, annual, and bundled plans, find the one that works for you at CuriosityStream.com.
If you really like this episode, please support our podcast by going to patreon.com/truecrimewives and get lots of great extras. On the Good Wife's Guide to True Crime, we discuss crimes that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised.
So to go along with our Cherokee Harriman episodes, we've had two different interviews, one being with her stepfather, Mike Edwards, and this one, which is author Judith A. Yates, who wrote a book about the case, and it's called Bullied to Death, and she has written many, many true crime novels, and we are extremely excited to have her here with us today.
Hey folks, it's time to grab your glass of wine because the Good Wives, Fancy, Colleen, and Christina, are about to serve up another true crime case.
Go ahead and just tell us a little about our listeners a little bit about yourself. Kind of introduce yourself here so they know who who's talking.
Well, I do actually have a really good story. I think it was Gloria Allred. Was it Gloria Allred? It was somebody. Oh no, I think it was Diane. It was somebody high on the food chain, and I was kind of nervous at the time. This was some time ago about calling them, and we have a lot of animals on our farm, and they're all rescues. And I was giving them this person a call, and I'm being very serious. You know, this is Judith A. Yates. I'm a true crime author. Well, outside my window, that's when our little lamb decided to chime in. So I'm saying, I'm wondering if they're able to, and in the background, and I'm trying not to laugh. And I said, I said, I am so sorry. I said, that is our adoptive lamb in the background. And whoever I was talking on the phone, making the appointment, didn't think that was very funny. And I'm really trying not to laugh, you know.
Right.
And so I said, wondering if they would be interested. And so when I'm ignoring her, she's being even louder.
Oh my gosh.
Now she's kicking the window and she's going,
oh, that's.
And afterwards, man, I'm laughing so hard I'm crying. And I said, if I never hear from them again, I don't blame them. But it is kind of funny.
That is funny. Like, and now, you know, it's like, it'd probably be a totally different reaction now because we're all stuck in the house with our animals and our lives, and you know, so it probably would just be like nothing to anybody listening to it today. It would be just like, oh well, there's a goat. I don't know. You know,
I know, yeah, and I want to say it might have been Diane Diamond. Diane Diamond would probably think it's hysterical.
Oh, that's just too funny.
But Gloria Allred might be kind of, you know, she's very. She's very. I love her. She's very straightforward. She doesn't make words, and she doesn't have time to play. You know.
Right.
And it might have been. God, I don't remember who it was, but it was kind of funny because just as I'm going, yes, this is Judith Yates. I'm a true crime author and a criminologist, and I'm wondering if they would have time to.
Oh my God, that is perfect. though. That's great.
Yeah, so Cinderella had a hand in getting me that that little discussion. So.
Oh wow! So did you start off writing first and then go into criminology, or did you start off criminology and then it kind of turned into you writing these books?
No, I actually, I started out a psych major, but I discovered I had dyslexia, and psychology is a lot of math, and I couldn't even pass intro algebra. And I had taken an elective called Intro to Criminal Justice because it sounded interesting. My grandfather was in the military, and he also worked for Pinkerton, and he was a gunsmith. And so I was plinking 22s, before I was in school. So anything that had to do with that, I was interested in, and I just fell in love with criminal justice. And so I had worked in law enforcement in different capacities, and I had a migraine-related stroke, and I was like, okay, I can't teach anymore. Law enforcement's, totally out of it.
Yeah.
What do I do? And I was always a writer, and I just kind of put the two things together. And then Brad's story came along, and that was my first book, and it just kind of all worked out.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. I'm so sorry you had the stroke. Was that early on? I mean, it had to be pretty early for you, huh?
Well, they're very rare. And I have chronic migraines, but I honestly believe in two things. I think everything happens for a reason, and I know that it could have been so much worse.
Yeah.
And, it meant for me, my migraines are more often, and some will put me in bed for 3 days.
Right.
But I have, function, and I'm able to hold a conversation, and, I'm not incapacitated in that way like some people are after a stroke.
Right.
My dyslexia can be worse, and sometimes my short-term memory and my word recall is bad. I will develop a stutter prior to a migraine onset. So if I'm having a hard time that day, I'll just take a day off from writing, and I'll do things around my house.
Right. I suffer from migraines myself, and my mother always had them, and she did have strokes. In fact, she passed away when I was 29 from strokes. She was having miniature, like over and over and over strokes, and I guess they just didn't catch it for quite a long time, and so that was really hard. But so I hope you've done a really good, recovery and are doing well. So let's get into some of the things that you've written and stuff. So your current book talks about Bullied, which is the act or an instance of killing oneself intentionally as a result of bullying. So how real do you believe Bullied is?
Let me step back first. That got me interested in this book because that kind of helps explain the situation. I was already working on something when this case happened in Laverne, a little town outside Nashville, and right away the media was saying, this little girl, Sherokee Harriman, killed herself because she was being bullied. Well, it kind of comes in groups, and right away the media was jumping on it, calling it bullicide, and people were rallying around it. Well, bullying's got to stop, and it kind of caught my eye because nobody really explains bullying, and nobody really explained what happened.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, look, Yates, don't get involved in this. You're trying to complete this one book, and you're going back and forth to Memphis and all over the, all over Tennessee and back. But it kept bothering me, and so I started researching it, and it just knocked me out. And I talked to Cherokee's family, and I said, I'm not going to do this unless you agree, which I do with all families. And they agreed, and they were brave enough to talk to me about everything, good and bad, in their lives.
Right.
And as far as suicide in bullying, I learned as I wrote this book. I was so completely educated while I wrote this book. And I learned that bullying, first of all, there is no complete definition. Every school district every school district has a different definition. Every school has a different definition.
Mm-hmm.
We have different definitions. You know,
Yes.
if
Yes.
you know, we used to say as little kids, nanny, nanny, boo, boo, you know. Okay.
Yes.
Some
Right.
people say that's bullying.
Right.
You know, some parents will, you know, raise holy hell because my kid was bullied because they said he was fat, you know, and then, okay, well, a kid comes home because he's, you know, he maybe has certain tendencies, and he gets called a fag, and he gets food dumped on his head in the lunchroom, and you get well, all kids get teased. Is that bullying? So, you know, it's kind of a no size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
Yet these schools are trying to make a one size fit all. And I don't want to blame the school systems. I don't want to blame the parents. I don't want to blame the kids, because it's really one of those all encompassing, what is the real answer? And there really isn't a one answer.
Right.
And as far as teasing, bullying, being mean, whatever you want to call it, a part in these kids' suicide, with some, it's sort of like the last straw. With some, it's the tip of the iceberg. But it is not the sole reason these kids are taking their own lives. And I discovered that, you know, this is happening with 5-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening that a 5-year-old child is taking his own life?
Wow. Yeah.
You know, what happens that a kid would even think of that?
Yeah.
Something is going on. And then, you know, little Cherokee, and I was looking at a picture of her that was showing in the media, and I thought, this beautiful little girl with this sunshiny smile and such hope and promise in her aura, what went on? And that sort of, and I kept getting this tap on my left shoulder as I'm thinking, I do not have time for this. I don't have time for this. And several of her family members said, I think that was, her nickname was Chick. I think that was Chick. I'm left-handed. So I honestly believe that had something altogether to do with it. And I thought, I've got to tell this kid's story. And she had many of the same problems as these other kids who have taken their own lives, quote unquote, because of bullying.
Right.
There are mental health issues.
Yes.
There are problems at home.
Mm-hmm.
There are problems at school, which kind of one begets the other. Problems with grades. And again, as you can see, these are all encompassing. You don't have problems at home without having problems with school. You don't have problems with grades without having problems at home. And the quote unquote being mean just kind of was the tip of the iceberg. Right. Right. I mean, this kid had, you know, she had been sexually abused as a little kid. A lot of times her, I'm going to kill myself was a threat to get her way. Right. And she was a sweet, sweet little girl. She loved her family very, very much. She was hard to be a friend with because she was diagnosed bipolar. She was diagnosed several things. She was kind of went through the gamut of diagnose of the month, you know, borderline, schizophrenic, bipolar. But again, she also came from a low-income family. And one of my pet peeves, the more money you have, the better help and care you get when it comes to mental and clinical health.
No, absolutely. So, I myself have been, you know, I'm diagnosed as bipolar. My husband is diagnosed as bipolar. 2 of my children, I think all 3 of them have their own issues, you know. And that's the same thing. Like there was a point in time where because we were on state insurance, you know, we only had one option and that was it. And I had a tougher time going there. It just was such a horrible experience walking in there and just in the lobby itself, not only, you know, and then going in and dealing with the different people. And I just really felt like they never understood anything I said, and they really didn't care. I felt like it was just like, okay, let's just sit here and write this down today, and then that's it, And comparatively to me having, an independent insurance when I first was diagnosed, and how different that felt. And, I got to a point where I just stopped going, because it was worse of an experience to go than it was to go and get help than it was to be home. I would start having panic attacks on my way. And then it would start being, I would have panic attacks in my house thinking about getting ready to go, so it just got to a point where I just stopped going. And it was because of the experience, like you said, because that was the only option I had. I couldn't go find somebody who was really good, and I was sitting telling a story to someone, to one of these people that was supposed to be helping me. And I finished the story and I was in tears. I was very upset about the story. And her answer to me was, well, I think that you accept things as normal that are not normal. And I lost it. Like I lost it on her. And I was like, what exactly does that mean? And I used some choice words, of course. And, I said, do you think that I think this is normal? If I thought this was normal, do you think I'd be telling you about it? Like, what kind of answer is that? Do you have these problems? Do you know anything about these problems? Have you had personal experience with anybody that has these type of problems besides just being, here? And, and I walked out and never went back. And, and it was years from there that I figured out ways to, I was at one point in time on 9 different medications.
Yeah. I mean, this kid, and think now, here's a 14-year-old kid and her is not the most functional or literate or educated, and nobody ever says when they have a child, you know what, my child might be bipolar, my child might have some issues, my child might get sexually molested, so I better prepare for that. Nobody ever says that. And so
you do the best you can.
Right. And it's just the same way as when they say one day my sister or my daughter might be murdered, so I better know how the criminal justice system works, so that when it does hit you, it's going to broadside you, and you better learn it yesterday.
Right.
So, this little girl was a very, very brave little girl, in my opinion, because she took on things that I don't know if a strong adult could have handled. And she, I think, and I don't know, it's still up to, I want people to read the book and decide, did we take her own life? Was it an accident? Was she showing out and made the mistake of taking her own life? I want people to determine that when they read this book, and then I want them to ask themselves, does it matter?
Right.
Because this beautiful little girl is gone, and what is her legacy? What is left?
Right. And I mean, from what I've read, I mean, I've only read a little bit about it. I have not read the book yet. I intend to read the book because it's something that we are highly invested in. We've read, we followed the Conrad Roy case. We followed the Slenderman girls. We followed the Skylar Niece, and so there's different ones that have been, bullies that have killed, and then obviously some bullying that led to, other things. And there's the question of, is that suicide? Is that murder? Because somebody led you to that with Conrad Roy and Michelle Carter, So we've been talking about this for a lot. And then we've experienced, I experienced a lot growing up of being bullied. And in this last year, as adults, we were being harassed and bullied by somebody on the internet, like viciously. And, that was hard for us as adults. I can't imagine what these poor kids go through, and I guess I was really strong growing up. I didn't realize it so much. I mean, I was just a fighter. So I fought, and I didn't allow people to walk all over me. Some kids do, but this young lady, was she popular? Did she, you said she had some problems in school. So what really led up to this event of her taking her life?
She wasn't the most popular kid, and I think part of the reason is because her family didn't have the money. They couldn't afford the cell phones like all the other kids,
or
the iPads, or the iPods, or the iThings, or the iIs, or whatever everybody else was saying.
Right.
And when she was a tiny girl in school, she wanted the pretty things, and she would steal.
Yeah.
And of course, she got in trouble for stealing. Which
Mhm.
they get a day off suspension, which is crazy in schools. But anyway, and then she also had a temper. She also could be a bully herself, which, in my opinion, again, one begets the other.
One begets the other.
Yeah, because she's learning how to hurt.
Right. And you lash out, right?
Yeah. And she had some good friends. She had some very loyal friends, and you know, she wasn't the most popular. She wasn't the most disliked. She was she put it all out there, boy, on social media, and that's part of the reason why the story is, you know, the title of the story is Bullying, Social Media, and the Suicide. Because so, you know, she had boyfriends, and it was kind of funny because one week I'm looking at her social media and she's like, my Pandy loves me and I love my Pandy and we're going to get married and I love Pandy, love, love, love. And then the next week she's saying Pandy is a little bitch, you know. So,
right.
oh, she's a 14-year-old kid, and she, you know, her social skills weren't the best, but again, you know, you're looking at a kid. But another thing that I wanted to explain in this book is bullying doesn't just exist in the schoolyard either.
No.
It's in the family dynamic. It was generational in her family. The grandfather was a bully to his wife, and so the wife could be a bully to her children, and the grandfather was a bully to his children. He was mean. He was mean to his girls.
Yeah.
It exists in the mental health system. We just had that discussion.
Yep.
Teachers, you know, I taught high school for 6 months. That was enough for me.
Yeah.
Because teachers are bullied. They're bullied by the system. They're bullied by each other. They're bullied by, you know, the principal and the higher ups. I hated it. And I love teaching. I love teaching as much as I love law enforcement. And never again. You know, I worked the mental health unit of the psych unit of a female prison, you know, a lockdown unit, and I will take that any day over high school.
Oh my gosh, we have to talk about that. That's definitely something that would be interesting. So do you think, now you touched on social media here. Do you think that the introduction of social media has made bullying easier and more accessible for these kids?
Well, you know, every time something new comes up, we're all about it. You know, yay, Facebook. And then give it a few more months, and then suddenly it's the enemy of the people. You watch whenever a new trend comes about.
Right.
You know, I remember back in the day, I was a badass skateboarder. You know, going up the sides of swimming pools and such, and you know, skateboarding was all the rage. And the next thing you know, it was going to kill everybody. So anytime you've got a trend, it's, you know, awesome, wonderful, and then the next, you know, month later, it's going to kill everybody. It's horrible. It's, you know, devil incarnate. Well, same way with Facebook. Everybody wants to blame social media now for the downfall of humans, you know. And one thing a mama said to me, whose daughter I interviewed, she said, you know, when we were kids, we could escape it.
Yeah.
You know, we'd get called name in the playground, and we, you know, cry and snuffle and go home and wipe tears.
Right.
Now you go home and you get online, and it continues.
It continues. Exactly. Like when I was in high school, you know, the worst thing you could do is write some stuff on a bathroom wall, you know, or have a fight in the schoolyard, like you said, like even at, you know, in high school, you know, like, you know, you get somebody to say something to you in the quad area at lunch, but like you said, then you went home and it ended. At least you hoped it ended, unless your home life was, you know, terrible as well, you know, which like you're saying, in this case, it definitely, it wasn't the best in that situation too, but at least she could, you know, you can go home and you could somehow try to get away from it in some way, but then you turn it on and it's in your hand 24 hours a day in your phone. You don't put the phone down, you know, it's with you. It's on your computer. It's in your phone. You carry that in your pocket all day long with you, you know? And so I just think that is something that, you know, we talk about keyboard warriors, because I think people say things online that they would never have the guts to say to somebody to their face, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I think about like, have you seen, I'm sure you have, I mean, maybe not, you may not have, have you ever watched the 13 Reasons Why show that deals with this?
I know about it because my oldest daughter was all over it. And she told me the premise of it. I just, I don't really watch a lot of, I guess it's all fiction or fiction rather.
Right.
I just, I tell you what, you know, you're talking about the Skylar niece, you're talking about the other cases. And I have a theory that the meanest creature on earth is a teenage girl.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The meanest creature on earth.
Right.
And there are several reasons I believe that. I think there's several reasons what makes them mean. And I really.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, it felt like my whole world came tumbling down.
Patient Advocate Foundation is here for you, providing free one-on-one practical support to patients with a cancer diagnosis. Call us at 800-532-5274. Patient Advocate Foundation can assist in navigating disability benefits and health insurance options. PAF also helps in accessing vital services, medications, and financial resources for both medical and household expenses. Visit patientadvocate.org or call 800-532-5274.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, it felt like my whole world came tumbling down.
Patient Advocate Foundation is here for you, providing free one-on-one practical support to patients with a cancer diagnosis. Call us at 800-532-5274. Patient Advocate Foundation can assist in navigating disability benefits and health insurance options. PAF also helps in accessing vital services, medications, and financial resources for both medical and household expenses. Visit patientadvocate.org or call 800-532-5274.
I wouldn't have, you know, thank God when I became a stepmother, they were in their 20s, and I miss the teenageism because I would probably be, you know, we had this discussion tonight. I would be a Nazi parent because I would be like, oh no, you did not, and you will sit there and you will, you know, or I'd be like, okay, you stay there and you stay there till you're 21, and then I would be I was already the cop, you know, who is he? Who is he? Where are you going? Do not be with him. You know, you take your own car. And this girl was 26. You know?
Right. No, my mother was the same way. I mean, she would, you know, I had a on again, off again boyfriend all through high school. And when, you know, when we started dating and stuff, it was his grandparents or my mother would drive us because we didn't have cars, you know. When he got his license and came to pick me up, my mom grilled him like she'd never known him. And I'm like, Mom, you've known him for 3 years. What is wrong with you? You know, she wanted his license plate number, his grandparents' phone number again. She wanted 2 other references. She wanted to write down his license number. Like, I'm like, Mother, what do you think he's going to do? Not bring me back? Like, you've known this kid for 3 years. She was the same way. She was the same way when I met my husband, and I still live at home. You know, when she met him at the door, she was like, I need all this information. And he's like, are you serious? She's like grown. Like, but my mother was serious. She was absolutely. She wanted to know it all. And she's like, I'll be damned if my daughter's going to end up in a ditch somewhere, and I don't know how to get a hold of her. You know, like, it's not happening. My mother was always like, that was her line. She's not ending up in a ditch on my watch. You know, it's like, oh my God, Mom. Like, you know, then you become a mother. Like, I have 3, well, now they're not teenage girls. I have one that's still a teenager. She's 17, but my other 2 are, you know, in their 20s now. And, you know, we went through a lot of bullying with them. My oldest was very tiny and she was extremely smart. So she, you know, she had a lot of problems there. And, there was at one point in time with her that, you know, it was back when, you know, Facebook was popular with the kids at that time still, but I was one of those parents that I still wanted to check on your, you know, so I was friends with my kids on Facebook. I wanted to know what was going on. So, you know, my daughter was actually, she had left school. She was being homeschooled at the time because she had some incidents, with not only bullying, but then also just some other things medically had happened. And so we kept her home, you know, and we homeschooled her. And she was excited because she was going to get to graduate early with the plan. So, she had these two close friends, had been friends with her for a while. And I checked in on her Facebook, and there was a young lady that I knew her name, but I didn't know the girl very well. And basically she was like cussing out my daughter on the page and telling her, you better knock off what you're saying and all these different things. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this girl talking about? So I messaged the girl back and I said, excuse me, this is her mother. What are you speaking about? And so then the girl came in the inbox and she started talking to me, and she was like, well, she's saying this and she's saying, I said, are you certain that you have the right Sarah? Like, this is, I don't think that is her. And she's like, no, I'm sure of it. Blah, blah, blah. Well, we came through and we went through everything. And I was like, you know what, honey, I'm sorry, but she was sitting right next to me when you were writing this stuff. So I'm fairly certain she wasn't doing anything at that time. And I asked Sarah to bring me her phone. I wanted to see it. She's like, why? What is going on? Long story short, it ended up being one of her best friends had hacked her account when time she had logged in on that girl's phone because her phone had been broken. And she learned her password. She created her own Twitter that she said was Sarah, using Sarah's email, and started basically slurring everybody in the school. Racial slurs, making fun of people for being fat, literally anything and everything she could do to make everybody hate my daughter. And then she invited her to the football game where everybody was going to jump her. And if I had not stepped in on that exact day, I don't know what would have happened to my daughter.
I told you, little girls are mean.
Yeah, it was terrible. And this was her best friend. And, that little girl stood there and looked me right in the eye and told me I didn't do it. And I'm sitting there going, I know you did. Like, I had proof, undeniable proof that she had done it. Nope, I didn't do it. I'm like, okay, well, we had to file a police report. It was crazy. And this was long before cyberbullying had really become a thing, like where they really knew. And it's still not. They're still trying to figure out the laws and the regulations and how does that work. And is it a local thing? Is it an FBI thing? Is it a this? Because it's a very gray area for things, but it's becoming bigger and bigger. But so that's one of the cases.
I had one of my daughter's boyfriends threaten me and say, "Meet me in private message if you don't like it." And I'm like, "Little man, little man."
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. So,
it was like, and I said, "Is this kind of like the equivalent of meet me after school?" And
right, like, am I meeting you under the bleachers? Like, what is going on here? Right.
That's what it was, and I was like, "Little man, okay,
cash me outside."
That's what it was, cash me outside. And I'm like, "What is this?" And at first, I just started laughing, and I thought, "What is this supposed to mean?"
Right,
meet me in private message.
Like, what's he gonna do? Beat you up in private message? Like, that is hilarious.
Sure.
Oh,
I wasn't sure, and I thought, what?
Wow, that is interesting. Well, now you mentioned the Memphis case, so I'm gonna assume that this is the other book that you ended up writing, which is She Is Evil: Madness and Murder in Memphis. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that case and how did you get involved with it?
Okay, see, I'm still kind of back on this fool that threatened me.
That's okay. You want to still talk about that? Go ahead. We're easy here. That's hilarious. I still can't. That is funny.
Don't even get me on that one either. That's on the Cocktails podcast, Cocktails and Crime. Okay, this one happened in Memphis, and the way I came about this one is I don't trust anyone that smiles in a mugshot.
That's a good rule. I think that's a good rule.
But this is a case where there's a fellow named Ijaz Ahmad, and he was raised in Pakistan. Mm-hmm. He was a devout Muslim, and he was very serious about his religion. And his mother's dying wish, literally her dying wish, was go to America and make your way. And that's exactly what he did. And Ijaz was a very, very honest, hardworking man. He met Leah Ward, who was she was identified as Christian. She was a white female from a very, very tiny town in Tennessee. And she gave him a sob story about her ex-husband had kicked her out of the house and stole her kids. And now she was wandering the street, cold, alone, and hungry. And she just needed someone to give her a chance. And she could be a good person. She knew it. And her big dream was to go to nursing school. And if someone would just give her a chance. Well, Ijaz, following his Muslim upbringing and to be a good person, one of his businesses is he had rental properties. So he tells Leah, I have a rental property open and I don't want you living on the street. You can stay there. Well, he gets to thinking and he goes to Leah and he says, I don't want you staying here. It's a bad neighborhood. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. Being a female living alone, take my house. But because I'm Muslim, I can't live with a woman who is not my wife. I'll move in with a friend. Eventually, he says, we seem to get along, and your children, and I have a son from a previous marriage, and we could make a family, and he marries her. Well, that's fine, but Leah fails to tell him she is still legally married. She just got out of prison. She is a drug addict. She is a prostitute. And she's all of these things that Ijaz is not. She's very manipulative. She's kind of living this flotsam life where she's going from here to here to here. And, depending again on who you talk to, she's mentally ill and she's got all these mental health issues. Well, while she's supposedly going to school to be a nurse, she's actually either going to get high, and while she's doing it, she's stealing from Ijaz. Now, Ijaz would go to Pakistan twice a year, and he would bring back all these beautiful swords and rugs and clothing, and his brother was the jeweler, so he'd bring back this beautiful jewelry, and he would sell them in one of his shops. Well, Leah would just help herself to these items, and she would be selling them for drug money. And when Ijaz finds out that she had been in prison on a drug charge, he just hit the roof, and he was like, we can't do this anymore. You've got to go. And it just broke his heart, one, that the whole marriage was a sham, and two, that he had to put her out on the street because he said, this just can't go on. Well, he had stayed very close to his first wife's family. They were still his family because, of course, all of his blood relatives were still in Pakistan. And because of everything happening in 9/11, travel had really been hard for him. And well, I'm sorry, let me back up. Not in 9/11, but travel had gotten really difficult for them because of everything going on in the Middle East and such. Mm-hmm. And so, with everyone looking at him very suspiciously and his friends, it just got almost impossible for them to travel and feel safe. And Ijaz was not a bad man. His friends were not bad people. So his family kept saying, Ijaz, you have got to get rid of her. She was abusive. She would hit him. She would call him names. She just treated him like crap. And she kept stealing from him. So finally he was like, okay, Leah, you've got to go. But I can't put you on the street. You're a parent. You have kids. So he took her to a very nice hotel downtown Memphis. He gave her a bunch of money and he said, good luck, goodbye. Well, unbeknownst to him, she got back to his house and she managed to steal everything she could put her hands on.
Wow.
He get back to the house. They have a fight and she ends up shooting him. She claims self-defense. But from everybody that I spoke to, there was no way Ijaz would have put his hands on that girl.
I think I remember this case. I really do. I didn't realize I had, but yeah, I do think I remember this one.
Yeah, she ended up killing him. She tried to cut the body up. She tried to dismember him. She managed to remove the head off the body. She drug it into his shed and covered it up. And then she went to check in for, you know, she had a parole violation. She tested positive for dirty UA.
Oh, wow.
And his son and his ex-mother-in-law, found Ijaz's body.
Oh, jeez.
And the book is called She is Evil because it was the last thing anybody ever heard Ijaz say about Leah.
Oh, my. Wow.
And
He's just trying to do the right thing, and God.
Right. And I wrote it because I have friends from the Middle East. I have friends who are Muslim, and I got damn sick and tired of hearing so many negative things about the Muslim community, about people from the Middle East, and, you know, how they're all a bunch of terrorists, how they're all a bunch of killers, and, you know, the 7 virgins and all of this bullshit. And I said, you know what? And then I heard of Ijaz's case. I saw Leah's mugshot, which led me to the case. And I said, this story needs to be told. And I spoke with his family here in Memphis, and lovely people. Just, you know, everybody always asks you when you write true crime, isn't it sad? And isn't it? It is, and it can be very, very difficult. And there's plenty of tears and nightmares that go with it. You also meet some wonderful people. I mean, I still consider many of them the victim survivors' family. I still consider them. And they said, excuse me, and they said, please tell his story, because Leah appeared on one of those crime shows telling her story.
I'm certain that is the one I saw. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, she told her story, and it was so full of lies.
Right.
About how you abused her.
Yes.
Hid her, and made her become a Muslim, made her wear the hijab, and forced her into labor and all this crap. And it was so, and what angered me is this story of the show, they didn't even research it. They just took her word for it. And so I wrote this book because, one, when people think domestic violence, they right away think of a man hitting a woman. And statistically, of course, that number is true. Domestic violence can also be a man hitting a woman, a woman hitting a man, a woman hitting a woman. And secondly, you know, if you're saying all Muslims are wife beater, all Middle Eastern men are wife beaters, are evil, are terrorists, you might as well say because of Timothy McVeigh, who blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. Timothy McVeigh is a white male Christian with blonde hair and blue eyes. Okay, does that mean that all Christian males are going to blow up a building? Does that mean all blue-eyed, blonde-haired men are evil or are domestic terrorists? And we have more incidents of bombings by domestic terrorists than we do foreign terrorism.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's why I wrote She is Evil.
Yeah, it's hard. These different shows, I think sometimes the need to get whatever story it is out as quickly as possible. Many times they don't fact check and they leave things on the table, and it's all about the story they can tell, And I like true crime. I do watch a lot of it, or at least I did until I started getting heavily involved in reporting on it myself, and now I find myself watching less of it than I did before. Unless it's to, look and research something about a case or look at something that, like you said, a friend is in, or, then I'll listen to it, obviously. But when we went through this with the Gypsy case, like, what they put out there about the case was not necessarily the whole truth. It was a very skewed way to present, because we spent 3 years doing Gypsy Rose Blanchard. And I worked with the family. I worked with Gypsy. We requested all the medical files. It was a crazy case. And what is out there in the public that just the regular people would know is not at all what that case is. But you don't know that unless you look further, and you really dig deep into it. And that's been one of the things that we've tried to do with that case, is because it, you can, on the surface, yes, it looks exactly the way that it's put out there. But then once you dig a little deeper and you learn more about the family and you learn more about Gypsy yourself and you learn all the different things and you read the medical files and then you watch her interrogation video, which was the turning point for our team, is when we saw that it was not at all what we thought it was going to be. And we had asked for it for over 2 years, and it was very shocking. It was heartbreaking for us because it was the moment that we realized, crap, this is not what people think it is. So I understand about that, where, a story gets out there and like you said, they just don't push all the way to dig far enough to get the full story, So.
Do you think that little girl was a manipulator?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Still is.
She learned from the best, but
yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She still is. Yeah. She'll never be just a normal person. She needs extensive amounts of help, and she's not getting it. And more, and moreover, she doesn't care to. She thinks she's fine,
Oh, yeah.
So, and she's not.
I mean, she's still looking for the fairy tale. She's still looking for the husband, the Prince Charming, that's going to just save her from everything. So she doesn't look at herself as somebody that does need help. And it's just going to be I think it's just going to be a sad future for her when she comes home.
And when you look into that story, start seeing it very early on that she wasn't just being coerced into doing it, she was doing it. She was doing things that wouldn't have been just her mother making her do that. She was doing that. She was doing it, and she was enjoying it. And by the time they landed in Springfield, she was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And she knew exactly what was going on. In fact, there's a 2-year period between, she didn't even land in Springfield until she was actually 17. There is a period between Katrina and Springfield. It's a 2-year period. They are not found anywhere other than they took the flight from, Louisiana to a different part of Missouri, to actually Kansas City. And then that was it for 2 years. I don't know what happened during that time. Nobody knows where they were. Gypsy won't talk about it, and we believe, and we can't, 100% prove it, but we believe, based on what we have seen and what we know, that there was a power struggle during that period of time. Because she is 15 years old. What do you do at 15? You begin to get mouthy. You want to rebel. You want to be left alone. You want to live your own life, And here's this mother who doesn't want her to do any of those things. And I think they were somewhere where that was, maybe she had a little more freedom for a minute, and maybe they came to an agreement as to why, why they needed to go to Springfield, why the Habitat House was being built, and all of that. And then I just believe that Gypsy just got tired. I think at some point in time she thought that it would all end, and we have a couple theories as to what was happening in the year that all happened, and it's I just think it was a moment of, no, I'm done with this. I'm not going to do this anymore. And she knew the only way that she was going to really truly escape her mom was for her mom to not be walking on this earth anymore. So yeah. I mean, it's a sad story. I have sympathy for her, because when she was little, yes, she was abused. Yes, she did fall through cracks. Yes, people should have known. Her family should have known. They should have done things. They knew things, and they didn't. They turned the other way because they didn't know what to do. And, can you blame them? I don't know. But I think just people just didn't pay attention to her. And, it's sad that it ended up where it ended up, because it didn't have to. If somebody had just stepped in and tried to help her, and nobody did. But she's a very, very manipulative, very cunning, nasty little girl now.
Yeah, I got that too.
She's mean. She's mean.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in a boom second, just she'll be the best, sweetest, kindest, nicest, and then she turns, and that is it for you. She just will cut you to the core. And we talk about that. We did a 13, our first season was 13 episodes on that. It was completely different than this season. Like this season is calm and we talk about all kinds of different stories and everything. That season was emotional and it was angry at times. It was funny at times because of the absurdity of it. But I mean, we spent 3 years on that case, eating, breathing, sleeping, dying by it, and whew, it took a lot out of us, and it was hard.
A lot, yes.
Yes, it is, and I don't think people understand. I think people see, they tune in for an hour and they see a true crime case and they're like, "Ooh, I love true crime," but they don't understand what goes into it. I mean, when I wrote, for example, when Nashville Bled, when I wrote that book, it took me 4 years. I went through a lot with that book.
And that's the one about Paul Dennis Reed, right?
Yes. And it focused on the victims more than it focused on the serial killer, Paul Reed, because when Reed was still alive and in the news, when all of these crimes were happening, the victims had no names. They were Sarah Jackson, the girl who was killed at Cat and Bees, and then a girl who was killed by Paul Dennis Reed, and even Sarah's family. Jenna was Jenna Jackson, the mother of Sarah Jackson, who was killed at Cat and Bees by Paul Dennis Reed. I mean, they were forever connected to him.
Yes.
And who was Sarah? Sarah was this amazing softball player. She was funny. She made her friends laugh. They would play hide and seek at the chapel, and then there was Andrea, and she had just gotten her driver's license, and she was whip smart. I mean, she was at a magnet school. She didn't even have to crack a book, but oh my God, airhead.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, it felt like my whole world came tumbling down.
Patient Advocate Foundation is here for you, providing free one-on-one practical support to patients with a cancer diagnosis. Call us at 800-532-5274. Patient Advocate Foundation can assist in navigating disability benefits and health insurance options. PAF also helps in accessing vital services, medications, and financial resources for both medical and household expenses. Visit patientadvocate.org or call 800-532-5274.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Just silly airhead girl, and just stories about her just cracked me up. And yet she was Andrea Brown, who was killed by Paul Dennis Reed, and that's all anyone knew her.
Yes.
And being a victim is only such a tiny part of who they were. And one of the things that concerns me right now with all of this true crime, you turn on these different channels and you see, these shows, twins who kill parents, brothers who kill sisters, crimes who happen between 6 and 7 p.m. on Wednesday. I mean,
right. No, you're right. No,
it's
totally
pretty ridiculous. And people don't understand, when you're going to write about this, you're writing about, I don't care if they were a $1 an hour prostitute and they died with a vein full of shit laying in the alley, or if they were making $1 billion a minute in a penthouse, that's somebody's kid.
That's right.
Somebody loved them, and they deserve every ounce of respect. And when you take on a true crime book, because before I start writing, I spend a lot of reflection, and I think a lot of times I'll go off by myself and I'll think, can I do this?
Yes.
Can I do this, and will I do this, and will I do them justice? And there's a lot of times with the Paul Reed book, especially because I had so many victims saying, can I do this family's justice? And I contacted them all and I said, if you don't want me to do this, I won't. And I was very lucky, and they all said yes, because nobody knows who my Sarah is. Nobody knows who Stephen is. Stephen had 3 kids that he loved. He loved the Dallas Cowboys. He loved sports. He even told his wife, if you go into labor on Super Bowl Sunday, you're SOL. You just have to labor until I know who wins, you know. I mean, they were just these awesome people, and they deserve their stories. And so
I totally agree with that.
A percentage of that book sales goes to parents of murdered children in the victims' names.
And I think that's so amazing. So you do that with each one of your books, right? You contribute to the nonprofit organizations in the victims' names?
Yes, to an organization either selected by the surviving victims and myself, or I'll select and I'm very, very careful about picking the nonprofit, because I want it to be a nonprofit that's actually spending the dollars towards the goal.
Yes. We think about that with the Gypsy case. One of the things when I set out to do that case, originally I thought I was going to tell the story, from Gypsy. Originally that's what I thought I was going to do. And it changed, along the way, as you find out little bits and pieces here and there. But then I began to figure out that there wasn't just one victim in that. There was so many victims in that story. And Dee Dee's a victim, but she's also a perpetrator, and Gypsy's a victim, but she's also a perpetrator, and Nick is, the same thing. They all were. And then you think about the charities and all the community that they scammed, and all these different people that were absolutely crushed by this whole thing. And so then we started thinking about originally we started off by calling it just by proxy, but because Munchausen by proxy, so just by proxy. And then it morphed into Murder by Design, by proxy being the first season that we're trying. We're still working on trying to get the show made, but if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. I think we've all made our peace with that, as far as how much time Gypsy has stolen from our lives in this, But I think that Murder by Design was because what we felt is that everyone in true crime, I feel like they really focus, it's very sensationalized a lot of times. And it's also, it focuses on a singular event of the murder. But that murder doesn't happen in just that one moment. That murder happens because of all the events in all the people's lives that led up to that moment, Right. And it's a murder by design. You're creating, these murderers are created by whatever it is that they go through in their lives. But and I'm not saying that they lived a terrible life so they murder people. That's not what I mean. But there are a series of events. You don't just take another person's life and that's it. Like, there is a whole chain of things that had to happen to that moment, not only in the murderer's life, but also in the victim's life. That wanted them up there. And that was more what we wanted to focus on, and now we do in our podcast as well. We don't like to talk just about the event, that one moment. We try to capture the idea of what really, got them there, and what created that, and how did you end up in this cosmic alignment for this to happen. We talk about Gypsy and Nicholas being a perfect storm, and that if there had been any other guy she had met online, I don't think it would have gone down the way it did, and we talk about whether or not Nick would he have done something on his own without Gypsy, so it's a very interesting way of thinking. But like you're saying, these are people's stories, and I feel like so often we focus on the murderer or the murder, itself, and we forget about the fact, like you said, these are people's loved ones. These are people that care about it. And there's a story that we're working on right now. It's an unsolved murder from the 70s, and it's a young girl, or she's not young, but she's the daughter, and her mother was taken from her when she was like 5. She didn't really know her mother very well. She had been bounced around back and forth between relatives. Mom had a hard life. She'd had several marriages. There was a point in time where, she's working the streets and things like that. And that's honestly what the police officer told her is, well, we have word that she was a call girl, so we really won't pay any attention to this case.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I don't give a crap what she was or who she was.
Well,
somebody cares about her.
Yeah, luckily that's changing where, you know, investigators are understanding that it doesn't matter what they do for a living. It was a long time coming. And nobody ever starts out, you know, we're little kids, I want to be a fireman, I want to be this, well, I want to be a prostitute. Nobody starts out saying that. And I guarantee you there are no dudes, or I don't care how high dollar you are, that enjoy doing that. And they can, you know, I watched some interviews where they were in, I don't know, Vegas or somewhere, and they were like, oh, I love it, I can be a boss of a, no, you don't.
No.
Don't tell me you love that job, or you know, you make a lot of money. Okay, yeah, but look at what you're doing. And I saw this show the other night. I caught it on, I think, Oxygen Channel, about the little Millbrook twins. They were in Augusta, Georgia, and they went missing in 1990. And they were the only set of twins to go missing in the States, whose disappearance has gone unresolved. And it was an interesting story. I really, my heart just broke for that family, as of course, I'm such a victim's advocate. But what really pissed me off was they had two people who said, it started out with a podcast, but they hardly talked to the podcasters. And then they got these two people involved that I do understand that they want to help solve the case.
Right.
But they go to the mother and they say, okay, well, this inmate told us that he was at a party and one of the girls was raped and her sister tried to help her, and they killed the sister, and then they killed them both and dumped them in a landfill. And of course the mother is just wailing and the sister's upset. And then they get more information and they go back to the parents and they're saying, okay, well, we don't think it was the sisters, we think it was somebody else. You don't fucking go and tell
until you know. No, until you fucking know. Right.
I mean, what kind of shit is that? And I was furious. I stayed angry because, and then they pissed off the sheriff by accusing his cops of, you know, being lackadaisical in the investigation. So now the sheriff gets up and leaves. Okay, you just lost your ally. And I'm thinking, you guys want to, you know, this poor mama, and they, again, another family that's not going to have the resources, another family that's not going to have, you know, at least they have the wherewithal to try and find out. But, you know, and another family that because they're black and because they're at a certain, you know, socioeconomic level, they weren't taken seriously. I mean, again, you know, and I think it comes down to, okay, you know, we're suddenly all forensic experts. And I don't know how many times I've been told, oh, you like true crime? Oh, cool. I watch all the NCICs. And so I really, I'm going, well, it's not really like that. And then
it's not.
You know, what do you think of John Bonet? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't work that case, and I know
exactly. Oh my God, exactly.
They told me, but I'm not going to.
Right.
Well, what do you think of, you know, do you think the father, I can't tell you what I think. I know what some people who worked the case told me, but that's it, you know. Well, I read in People magazine, or I'm always wrong.
I know. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we dealt with that. We dealt with that with what we were doing with the gypsy thing. You know, we started doing it. We did some stuff. We grew a huge channel. You know, we grew a huge following on Facebook. We did a lot of articles in Touch Weekly where we were talking, you know, when the act came out, I was basically kind of debunking the different things that were different between what the act was portraying as a scripted show and what was the truth, you know. And this woman, I loosely use that term, ended up, you know, stalking us and harassing us. And she moved from this case, you know, she was horrible to us in this case. Like she would always the same thing. She told us, oh, well, you don't know, you did it. I'm like, I'm looking at the paper. Have you seen the paper? Because I don't think you have this. You don't have this. This is not public records. I have things that you don't have, you know. And then she makes a ludicrous statement like, well, okay, so there's 7 eye surgeries, but I'm only going to count that as one surgery because it's the exact same surgery 7 times. So that's just one surgery. I'm like, ma'am, it doesn't work that way, okay? If you have 7 surgeries, it's 7 surgeries. You don't get to count them as one. It's not. But she ended up she had gone on to doing some missing person cases, and she latched on to these families. And was heartbreaking. And everybody tried to say, well, we were angry just because of what she had done, because, you know, people would come to me and say stuff and come to our team and get us involved. And they were like, well, you're just angry at her. No, you know what I'm angry is that she is preying on these people. These people are desperate. They've had their, you know, some of them were 20 years, some of them were 10 years. And all they want is for someone to bring their babies home. That's all they want. That's it. That's all they want. And they don't care who you are, you know, and they will latch on. And she was, you know, scamming them for money, scamming viewers for money, doing all these different things. And it made me absolutely angry. And I would retch about it because it was so upsetting, and everybody couldn't understand, well, why is it upsetting to you? You don't care. I'm like, I do care, because this is my community that I work in with other people that are professionals, and she is destroying these families. And she destroyed like an entire town of people just angry and back and forth at each other. And because that's all she wanted to do, was she wanted to solve a crime and look, you know, big on Facebook. I'm like, honey, it is not that simple, and it's not that glamorous. Like, you know, I mean, we look through things and we cry. We look through things and we get angry. And there are times where you look at something and you go, I don't know. Like you said, I don't know. And I have to look at people like we told the lady we were talking to the other day. I looked at her and I said, I have absolutely no guarantee that I can figure anything out for your mom. Okay. It's a hard story. There's not a lot to go on. I will do my absolute best to look into this and see if I can tap on some resources, call a couple people, you know. We have friends at NAMIS, you know, we'll see what we can do. But to be honest with you, looking at her and having to tell her, I just don't know. It's heartbreaking. Like, I'm sorry, I can't guarantee. And, you know, police officers have to do that every day. So people think that it's so easy to just sit on your couch and you're going to solve a crime. And, you know, it's not that simple, folks.
Right. It just, and I almost get, you know, if it's, you know, well, I want to write true crime, and I always want to say, please don't.
Please don't.
You know,
please don't. You know anything about it? It's not.
And it's not going on the internet and stringing stuff together, because I've seen that too many times. And
right.
You know, you need an editor, and it's going to cost you a lot of money, and it's your best investment. Well, I just use online, you know, Google spell check. Please do that.
Please don't do that. Right. No, it's and that's one of the things I have all the information to write a book on what we went through. I've just not sat down to do it yet, because I don't want to. I want to, like I do, but then I don't, because we have to reopen a part of our story that we closed, you know, and start over and re-look through all those things and put it all together. And like you said, you know, when you're doing it, you're in that moment. You are in that story. That it doesn't, and you don't get to put it away. I remember thinking about it. I would lay in my bed at night and just think of all the other things that I needed to write down and ask somebody. Like, you know, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, what about this paper? Do I have that paper? Where is that paper? Like, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
well, when I was writing with Nashville Bullied, and I had to step away, I would have nightmares, almost a PTSD sometimes. And just recently, last year, Dr. Henry Lee asked me to do a presentation.
I love him.
On his Markle Symposium. It was on serial killers, and I did a presentation on Paul Reed, and I started having the nightmares again. And I'm talking about nightmares where I woke up screaming.
Oh man!
They started again, and it was okay. You know, and I'm putting together the presentation, and you know, everybody was like, "Oh my God, you're presenting for Dr. Henry Lee, and he asked you personally," and I was very honored. I really was, and you know, got to meet his staff, and we all had dinner together, and it was a wonderful experience.
Yes.
And I also had nightmares and some hard times going over that. And when I do present on that case, I will always get a catch in my throat. I always have to pause a few times. Because I loved these victims.
Yeah.
You know, they're close to my heart, and I'm very protective of them. And if somebody wants to make a joke or what have you, then I'll I'll jump their ass because nobody is, I'll still say like my Sarah or my Stephen or because nobody's, and like Robert, who, they had his name wrong for years.
Yeah.
His sisters told me when I first talked to her, she said, please get his name right because nobody ever did.
Oh,
what? She said Robert Sewell. He wasn't a junior. That wasn't our daddy's name. She said it's just Robert Sewell. And she said, and we called him Bert.
Wow.
Wait a minute. He wasn't Robert. I said, the media, everyone said he was Robert Sewell Jr. She said he wasn't.
Wow.
So please,
Wow.
get his name wrong.
Jeez.
How hard is that?
Right? Like, how hard is it to get? And I've seen that. We're dealing with another missing person case down in Florida, and every single article that we pulled up, every single thing that we looked at in the media when we were just starting to get into looking into the case, so that we could just have some information when we go down and talk with the families and things for us to ask them stuff. And I was talking with the best friend of the girl, and every single article was wrong. Something in it did not coincide with another article.
I mean, that's going to happen.
Dates were off. The person's name was wrong. And it was just like, how hard is it for you to get the facts right? These are people's lives.
But you know what? I was talking to another Lowell Caulfield, who's I just love to death. I love him as a person, and I adore him as an author. And he was saying, it's the age of let's get the information out there now.
Yep. Yes.
Not the copy is due tomorrow. And so they're going to grab the information they can, and we can just fix it later.
We can fix it later.
So I can understand that to a point. And also it's, well, what did they say? Oh, they said it's John Doe. Oh, okay. What did they say? They said it was John Doe. Oh, Don Doe? Okay, I got you, Right. And so that happens. So, and it's kind of funny because I am the media, but there's a lot of media I don't trust. And I was just on a show called Murdered by Morning. And it's actually still on. It's on the Oxygen.
Right. Now that's on Oxygen, right? And you've also done Evil Stepmothers on Oxygen and Snap, right? You've done a couple different things, right?
Right.
Okay.
The Murdered by Morning is, you can still see it. It just aired. It's called Gambling with Death. It's the Shannon Sanderson case that happened in 1996 in Memphis. And but I was on another show where they said, okay, we want you to say the entire town lived in fear. And I said, I'm not going to say that. Why? I said, for one, it's too cheesy. And two, nothing makes an entire town live in fear. I mean, look, right now, my hometown, San Antonio, is on lockdown right now.
Right.
Because of this virus thing. And
Right.
I said, nobody is living in fear.
Fear.
A whole town doesn't live in fear. I said, and it's cheesy. I'm not going to, well, just say it. And I said, no, sorry, I'm not going to.
I had the same experience for the Reels channel when I went down to do a thing, and she wanted a sound bite, and she just kept trying to get one here or there. And I'm like, you know what? You're just going to have to find one in what I actually say. Like, you're just going to have to find one. I say some good stuff, so you'll probably find one, but you're going to have to find it in what I say, and it's going to have to be authentic, because I'm not just going to say something for the sake of you getting a sound bite that you want to put on a clip. That's just not happening. I was the same way. I think the same thing. Now, you've also done you also done a couple of things that were a fictional novel. Now, do you prefer writing fiction or nonfiction?
It's like, apples and cats.
And oranges. Apples and cats. Yes. No, I agree with you. No, it's so funny. We ask that to a lot of people who write both, and it's always something that they go, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, two different. I love writing I guess you'd say the actual first book I did was An Elephant Snuffled My Tent, because I followed a dream and I went to Africa and I did some volunteer work on an anti-poaching case, Cookie Gallman's old area Narrow. And I had always wanted to meet her, and it was one of those things I said, God, I'd love to go to Africa and I'd love to meet Cookie Gallman. And I was like, well, then what am I doing?
Right.
Sitting here saying, I wish, and I did it. And I wrote a book of my experiences. And of course, again, 100% of benefits from that book goes to Gallman Memorial. And so, and it's all my photographs, all my writing stuff.
That's amazing.
So that's just one of my favorites that I've done, actually. And I did write a fiction one called I Want Who You Are. And it's about twin sisters. One is the kind of a dowdy underachiever. She's really never had anything to claim. She just kind of one of this Casper Milquetoast kind of characters, just kind of a lump. And the other one is this beautiful, gorgeous golden girl. And the lumpy girl decides I want her life. And she kills her to take over the life and finds out that it's not all that's cracked up to be. Then she slowly starts a new transformation.
Wow.
And it was,
sounds like
it
a
was
powerful
fun to write
one.
because it was very dark and interesting because, you know, we all think everyone else has such a better, you know, more golden, you know, gosh, I wish I was rich. I wish I was a movie star. And you know, when I was a little girl, I wanted to be, you know, this famous movie star. And, and way back in the day when I was a model, I hated it because it was just so phony and it was so stupid. And I found out when I was in radio, I was a radio jock for a while. And I thought, well, you know, I would like to go into television newscasting. And I met, you know, I was kind of in the business, I guess you'd say, because we all knew each other. And I was like, dear God, you know? And it was not me. And so what you think is gold. You know, all that glitters. And that's kind of the premise behind that is what you think you need or you want. And it's kind of one of my life lessons that I think I finally learned is what you think you want, you know, what you want versus what you need.
Yes.
It took me a while to learn that one.
I went through that journey myself.
And I'm kind of, you know, believe it or not, I'm bullheaded. So
no.
I'm a Taurus and I'm Irish, so you know. So I'm kind of going, oh, I'll make it happen, or you know, by God, it will happen. And sometimes when it doesn't, I'm like, well, then I'll just make it happen again, you know. And it won't.
Yes.
Why won't it happen? Well, because it's not supposed to. So I have learned that.
Yeah, I think that's something that comes with time and you know, realizations of things, and sometimes you get what you want and you realize, like you said, it's not at all what I want. That's not at all what I wanted. You know, like, that's not fair. I thought I wanted that. It's not what I wanted at all. But I mean, you've done a lot. So let's see. You've been.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
A lecturer, an instructor, Dallas Area Paralegal Association. You have been an advocate for the parents, family, and friends of lesbians and gays. You've done Texas Association of Licensed Investigators, Corrections Department, Federal Bureau of Prisons, Sheriff's Department. I mean, like, you've done it all, and a crime writer, and now, I mean, you even have been in the magazine industry writing for true crime case files, right? So you've kind of done.
That was a quarterly publication, and we're going to go ahead. I think we're going to go ahead and change that to annual. publication. We haven't really decided yet. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. And I was so inundated with things that the migraines were starting again. I've got to slow down.
Right. Well, I mean, you definitely have a wealth of things that you have done over the years. So, I mean, I just pretty impressed by everything. When I started reading about you and learning about what you had done, I'm like, my God, she's done it all. Like,
not at all. I can't sing.
Oh, well, I can sing. I can sing. I got you there. No.
I wish I could.
I'm just
a musical instrument. I wish I could.
I feel like I'm at the movies. I just need some popcorn. I'm hanging on your every word.
I can't sing and I can't dance.
Well, was there anything else that you wanted? I know that you had said there was some things you wanted to make sure got in, and one of the things was making sure that we knew that all of your books portions of your proceeds go to different charities. Was there something else that you wanted to make sure everybody knew?
You can learn more about my books at truebook.net, all one word.
Say that again, because I think you cut out for a second. So say that again.
It's truecrimebook.net.
Right.
And you can find out more and also grab up a book there.
Yeah, she's got some great ones, guys. So you definitely want to grab a couple of those, because I know I did. I'm waiting.
Yay,
I'm waiting.
I read this month.
Right. For my one book that I wrote.
Like mortgage this month.
Yeah, right. I know how that is. Well, I thank you so much for coming on and joining us tonight. I mean, it's been fascinating, because you write about so many different types of things. That is what I think is so interesting, because so many times, we talk to people and they write in one specific, even, true crime is broad, and, you have written in all different aspects of it. And I think that is super interesting, but I guess that's because of your background in so many different elements, so. Well, I
want people to keep an open mind, and when you're watching these shows, and when you're watching these documentaries. When you're watching documentaries, keep in mind that there's a lot more than what you're watching on television.
Absolutely.
And trying not to make snap decisions on the real story.
Yes.
And if you really want to know more, research before you open your mouth, because I've seen some really interesting comments of late on different things. And
yeah, I think that's another thing that we've encountered with forum boards and things like that. And we've almost gotten to a point where we don't say a whole lot in those. We'll sit, we'll listen, we'll look at things that pop up, and that means we see something and we go, oh, hey, we need to go look at that. Let's go find XYZ, or let's go pull that from, go request that record or whatever it is, because we're going to do it ourselves. We're not going to sit around and, look at an article and accept it. But those forum boards, those people think they know everything. And it just like, I had one lady tell me about a case that, well, have you read the transcript? And I said, yes, ma'am, I have read the transcript. Do you know all the things that don't get into a transcript? Do you know all the evidence that didn't get presented in court? You don't. So you can't make just a judgment from that one transcript. Like, there is so much more to that case. Yeah. So, and that was a death penalty case, a couple of them that we've looked at, and and those are hard. Like those, it's hard when you're thinking about a person's life, and taking someone's life or taking someone else's life. But you have to know, you've got to know what is going on, and it can't. These people think, oh, well, this is that and that. I'm like, you don't know. You weren't there. You don't know. You really don't, unless you've done all the investigation and you've seen it all. Even then, you may not know the whole story, because you only have what you have,
I think it's just such a scary time. So many people they want to be important. So they want to know something that nobody else knows. So they'll spread information without checking it, without looking into it. It's just spread it. And I want to be the one that people share it from. So it was me that knew this. But in all actuality, people don't deal with facts. And that's like my biggest pet peeve is that we have Google at our fingertips. There's no reason for anybody to be giving false information as if it's a fact, and then they get angry at you when you correct them with with real information. Like, well, we have this, and it shows that this is actually what happened, and then they get mad at you. It's not like, oh, okay, wow, that's great, you have that information. It's just instant anger because you went against what they said. And you see it in true crime. You see it just everywhere. It's becoming like one of my biggest pet peeves, I think.
It's like, you think back.
I just recently heard a really good comment about don't, what did they say? Don't confuse your Google search with my doctor degree.
Yes,
right,
that's it.
Right.
Oh, yes.
That, and I think I saw one the other day that was like, we used to think that it was lack of information that made people stupid. It wasn't that.
Yes.
Because, you, like you said, you can look anything up almost, I mean, obviously there's more than that when you're dealing with true crime. Obviously, like we've all said, there's more that people don't see and don't have, but other things you can. But
like a simple fact is easy to Google.
Simple fact is easy to Google, and they are just like, no, absolutely not. That is absolutely. And you're like, I'm showing. Look, it's right here. Like, it's here. No.
I just gave up on that ever since because I got started. Somebody started me on that. Is it Gabriel Fernandez?
Oh God, that one is so sad.
It was, and I said, okay, we need to get past yes, it was a horrific thing and how awful. And okay, so we need to know now what caused this. What happened to this mother that made her think it was okay? What happened to this boyfriend that made him think it was okay? Man, I got my ass jumped.
Yeah.
You don't care about, and I'm like, I'm not saying I don't care. I'm saying we need to know what happened.
If you don't know what happened, how do you stop it from happening again?
And that was my point. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm out of this conversation because I'm tired of hearing about how I don't care about anybody.
That's what we did too. I mean, we've been through that. We just went through that with the Gannon Stout case. We were covering something, and I was covering the Lori Vallow case and the Gannon Stout case at the same time on our YouTube channel. I made the mistake of saying that Gannon Stout was autistic because JJ Vallow is autistic. And it was very similar cases, covering them at the same time. I was extremely tired at the time, and I made the mistake. And we were in this group, and these people literally just bashed the hell out of me and Colleen, who was our other co-host that's not here tonight. And I was like, okay, you know what? And I went back and I realized I was wrong, and I apologized. I went back and apologized. I was like, okay, I'll apologize. That will make all this better. And then it was basically, well, you don't care if you can't even get that right. I'm like, did you hear anything else that we said in this whole case? Yeah. Like, did you listen to anything else? Like, one word made you all angry. And I immediately corrected that. That happens, okay? It does happen. And that's the thing. I know we've talked about how, media doesn't get it right, or there's so many different inaccurate things. But when a person is telling you, I am so sorry, you're absolutely right. I was totally wrong in that sentence. But everything else in that entire thing was fact checked, and everything. I made a mistake. I'm very sorry. And they were you're just using this to get money. I'm like, actually, my YouTube channel is not monetized. So I'm not making any money off of this. Thank you. And I've been doing this for, several years now with no money that I'm not getting. Eventually, yeah, will I get money? Maybe, if I sell something or we get, a sponsor the podcast or what have you. But, I think people don't even realize how much time we put into these things that we don't get paid for. We don't, and we care about these cases. Otherwise, we wouldn't talk about them. Like I was brokenhearted for that boy. And then they were saying, well, we're here. We want to keep hope that he's alive. I'm like, I would love to keep hope that he's alive. But if you look at the facts of this case, chances are he's not coming home, folks. Not that way. And it's sad, but it's the reality of the situation. And then that was even, so we pulled out. We were like, you know what? I said, Colleen, delete anything that we put in that group and let's just get out. Let's just get out. Because And then that was the very last time I think I've had any conversation like that, except for in one group that they are very kind to us. They like us. They always ask us questions and things. And that's the only group I talk in, other than to like drop a link and be like, here is my podcast. Come listen to this,
Well, I think there are shows, and here we go again with these true crime shows. There's shows that, there's shock value.
Yes.
And then there's education. And yes. I felt like the trials of Gabriel Fernandez was all about shock value. I didn't feel like it. And that was just my opinion. It was just my opinion.
I had mixed feelings on it. I really felt like that was more the story of the prosecutor than anything else.
Right.
And I was impressed with him. Let me just hands down, very, very, very impressed with that prosecutor. I felt like he really cared about the case. I felt like he really wanted to make sure that every single thing was explained to the jury so that they would, they really got a picture of what happened to this poor boy. And I think he really does care that he wants to go forward and change what was broken in that story. I have friends who are DAs in LA and lawyers in that, and even in, the mayor's office and things like that know about this. And I asked him about it, and but I was just terribly, terribly impressed with him and how much he wanted to convey that story and then go on. And like you said, what happened here? What went wrong? Not just with the parents, but what happened in the system. And that was the first time that they had ever tried social workers for negligence. That had never happened before. That was unprecedented.
If we're going to try anybody anytime something bad happens and a horrible thing happens, we're looking for scapegoats, and we try to clean up a mess, and then we try to blame the game, and then we've already got the mother and the father. That's easy enough, but we don't feel good enough about that. That's kind of a given.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about, there's so many people who failed at protecting. Okay. Are we going to prosecute the people who took him away from the gay couple because they said he can't be raised by gay couples?
Right.
Right. Are we going to take him away from the abusive grandmother? Okay. How about the hospital who said, well, this woman doesn't care about this child. She just dumped him at the hospital and took off.
Right.
It's
just, it's hard. It's where do you draw the line? I felt like he walked a good line on that. I really did. And like I said, I think that story was more about him and what he did and what his journey was than anything else. I thought it was remarkably done, but I do get where you're coming from with sensationalism of it. I do. And that's one of the things like we've talked about that, if that is true crime become just sensationalism and what the biggest part of that story can be, what are the other details? What else happened? Where is the mental illness when you're looking at something like this? Where is this? Where is that? There's a lot of things that get left out. But, when you're thinking about you're only doing so many hours, you can't tell these stories in so many hours. Sometimes I think, there has to be a choice made. And often that choice is what's the better story, instead of what's the whole story.
The mother that Pearl Fernandez was just, and the family members going, I knew somebody was going to die. I just didn't know it would be the kid. Okay, do we prosecute them?
Yeah. Well, that's what we heard in the Gypsy case. Like, the family knew. They knew she could walk. They knew different things. They were like, well, and one of the statements was, well, Gypsy finally snapped and killed her. And I was like, if you knew that much, like if you, and I love that was a cousin that said that, and I adore him. I think he's a very sweet guy. I like him very much. But to make that statement was like, what? Are you serious? Wow. Okay. Why didn't you stop it then?
I want to know more about what created his mother and the boyfriend too, about,
Yes.
what created that we can learn from. And
yes,
and everybody's, bitching about the teacher. And I'm trying to explain, look, teachers are so limited as what they can do.
Yes.
You can't snap a kid up and run, because then you get all kinds of criminal charges and the kid still goes back home.
Right.
Oh, I couldn't.
It's 10 times worse on the child, and yeah.
I mean, I had kids that they had some mental issue problems. I knew they did, and right now with special ed, when I was in school, special ed was special ed. Okay, now they're putting fire starters sitting next to Down syndrome's kids, sitting next to mentally ill kids, sitting next to bipolar, sitting next to kids with ADHD.
Right.
I mean,
putting it all together in one box. Exactly.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, this kid just got special ed because he's mean as hell and he's off his meds, sitting next to this poor little kid with Down syndrome, and they're asking for it.
Right.
I mean, there's, and there is no one answer, and the school doesn't have, so now you're asking this teacher, okay, she's doing what she can. Well, she can't just scoop up a kid and run. Okay, this social worker can only do so much. You've got a caseload of 30-something. So there's not one answer. And to me, it's fair, but it's not to prosecute them.
Right. And it ended up not going through. They didn't. But I think it was more. I honestly think that was more of a statement than anything else. All right,
I agree.
This is broken, and if we don't do something drastic, it's going to continue to be broken.
I mean, I have seen some nasty stuff done to kids that I don't even want to say.
Oh yes, absolutely. And it's heartbreaking. But and that was such a. The boyfriend was the enigma to me in that. Like, okay, I could look at her, and honestly, you can look in her eyes and see a very dead soul, just dead.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. She's just sure evil. But you look at him and you listen to the lady talk about how caring he was with the nursing home people, and how he did this and that and she's like, he was a very caring person. And you're like, so was that her effect on him? Where did that come from in him? And how do you compartmentalize that? How do you beat the hell out of a small child, throw him in a cupboard, do all these different things, and then go off to work where you work with seniors and be the most kind, compassionate person to these seniors? What? And then come home and do it all over again? Like, how does that happen? You're right. It's absolutely. I want to know more of what caused that, because that.
My theory on that is the homophobia. I've seen it before. Guys who are like the sweetest. They're like. I mean, I've seen it in my own family. And when they think someone is gay, it's like, oh, you fucking faggot, not in my fucking house. And it's like a totally different person, because it brings out this hatred inside of them. Yes. And I think that could have been what it is. Like, he may have been a wonderful person when he was okay with you, but if he thought you were gay, that was like an abomination to him that he couldn't, they're going to say he's gay. Why? Because I'm helping to raise him. They're going to think he's gay because I'm raising him, not my kid.
Right.
And I think that really can make a difference in someone who, when you normally know them, it's like, oh, they're such a sweet person. I can't understand how they would ever do something like that.
That's an excellent theory. But I'm also wondering, I mean, it was a nursing home. And if my parent was in there, that woman's not going to publicly say, well, we all kind of suspected of him stealing and he wasn't the nicest guy. she's got
right. But she didn't have to testify either. She could have just not. That was just a character witness, so she didn't have to say anything. She could. So I truly believe that she really did think that he was a good person and that he was compassionate and he was caring and he did these different things. And I like Christine. I mean, I agree with Christina. I definitely think it had a lot to do with the homophobia, which is one of the reasons why he was taken away from the family that was raising him, that he was happy with. He had a happy life for a while with them, and then to be yanked away because they think gay people can't raise children. Are you serious? Like, wow. Okay. I mean, we could talk about these. We could go on and on. Like, this is what happens every single time we do one of these interviews. We end up in a 2-3 hour conversation because we can talk about them for so long. But I really do thank you so much for coming on and being with us tonight. And I'm sure we will talk again more.
Yeah.
We may have you back again, but I've enjoyed talking about all your different books, and definitely should go check it out and see what she's writing about. It's very, very good books that I have seen from you. So, but thank you so much, and you have a wonderful evening, and stay safe in all of this madness.
We absolutely love hearing from our listeners, and we'd like to invite you to send us a question for us to answer or a case you'd like us to cover. You can drop us an email at goodwivesdish@gmail.com, and we might feature it in one of our next episodes and give you a shout out. Right now, we are also hosting our #LoveWins Scholarship Fund. If you're a college-age student who would like to enter, send us a 30-second video telling us about how you lead with love. Email your entry to us with a little bio about yourself and your educational goals. And if you'd like to learn more about our #LoveWins campaign for peace, merchandise, or donation details, go check out our informational video on youtube.com/murderbydesign. We look forward to hearing from you.
Along with our Love Wins campaign, we are also launching an organization that is tentatively called the Gale Force. The term Gale Force is used to describe a very strong, fierce wind. The acronym GALE stands for Good Apples of Law Enforcement. Usually, when we hear about any incident involving wrongdoing by a member of law enforcement, they're generally referred to as bad apples, which leaves people asking, where are all the good apples? We know they exist, but we don't get to hear from them enough. That's where the Gale Force comes into play. The Gale Force would be a safe space for those good apples to unify and take action against the bad apples. We believe that good outnumbers bad in all aspects of life, and those numbers are where that Gale Force of fierceness and strength come from. When good unifies, bad will always lose. There are issues in the law enforcement profession that need to be rectified, and we believe that the best way to resolve them starts from within. There's what we call the blue wall of silence, which is an informal rule among police officers not to report on a colleague's misconducts or crimes. It's time to tear that wall down. Officers are often punished if they break that wall of silence. An example of this is Officer Carriel Horn, who we've been hearing a lot about recently. Back in November 2006, she stopped another officer from putting a suspect in a chokehold. She was fired after 19 years on the job and lost her pension because she intervened. Also, the stigma that goes along with members of law enforcement seeking out mental health care needs to end. Studies have shown that members of law enforcement are less willing to seek care because of embarrassment and shame. Keep in mind, this is a high-stress profession with a higher suicide risk than other professions. There have also been some studies that indicate that if an officer receives support from their unit, they're much more likely to seek help when it's needed. We believe the good members of law enforcement far outweigh the bad, but we also believe that the system needs to be changed to give them a louder voice without fear of retribution or desertion by their colleagues or superiors. We hope the Gale Force can be a first step in giving these law enforcement officers from all over the country support and a way to come together and say, we will not stand by and allow anyone to tarnish the profession that we have dedicated ourselves to. We're going to clean the barrel, one bad apple at a time.
Thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives.
Don't forget to join our Patreon member club to get inside documents and pictures from the case, bonus mini podcast episodes, live YouTube discussion, and an exclusive invitation to our discussion group on Facebook, and get some amazing Good Wives merch.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at True Crime Wives. And for more inside information, check us out on YouTube at Murder by Design, where we're currently talking about a few different true crime cases, from bullying murders to serial killers. We dish it all.
Have a good one from the Good Wives, serving up true crime, one dish at a time.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.